Thank you, everybody. This is the Planning Commission meeting in the City of Calabasas, August 3, 2023. First, a call to order. We have a couple of absences tonight, excused, Commissioner Villa and Commissioner Mueller. Now we can go to the Pledge of Allegiance, and Dennis, would you lead us?
I'd like to introduce it, if I can. And that is, I got a notice from the Veterans Administration yesterday that the VA and the Disabled Veterans Association are now recognizing that anybody who served in Vietnam or Guam or a whole bunch of other places is now eligible for disability claim consideration. For me, it's only 57 years later, but I'm happy to be in this country and to actually have been paying attention for that period of time. So let's stand and salute our flag and be grateful. You should put your hand over your heart and repeat with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dennis. And
Now, I said that because any veteran that's in Calabasas that heard me say that, check your mail, or if you haven't, and you are a vet, whatever your service, see if it applies to you in some form, because it's time to make sure that you get what you're entitled to for serving this great country.
Thank you, Dennis.
So thanks.
And as I said, thank you for your service.
I move approval of the agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any announcements? Maybe? Dennis? No? Okay. Then we go on to...
Wait a minute. One thing.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe staff can help me confirm. Is there not a concert by the lake this Sunday? I think so. So check your website. 6 o'clock, Calabasas Lake, right next to the Tennis and Swim Center. Nice concert. Free. Bring a picnic and enjoy yourself.
If I'm not mistaken, it's the last one of the summer.
I think so.
Yes.
No, there might be one more. I'm not positive. Anyway, that's my only announcement.
Well, thank you. So we have two consent items. One is...
Federal communications.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Is there anybody here who wants to speak on an item that's not on the agenda? I don't have any cards, so... All right. Then we go to the consent items. Approval of the minutes for July 20, 2023, and adoption of Resolution 2023-756 approving site plan review 2022-012 regarding 4022 Bonhomme Road. Is there anybody want to take one off or just approve the consent items?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay.
Can we have some discussion?
Sure.
On the motion. I did pay attention to the resolution prepared by staff in our favor, because we asked them to do so. There's a couple of things I'd like to just, because I have no opposition to the resolution, but I think we probably need to take a peek at some of the language that we use to identify, the kind of approval we're giving. And I'm not going to bring them up. I'd like to be able to just put on note that I want to speak to somebody in the planning department to deal with some of the language issues that might, frankly, give us difficulty or slow us down in the future as well. Nothing complaining, just to talk about things like what happens if insurance comes into play, like the insurance companies are not even insuring against hazards in homes and so forth. Allstate, State Farm, we're going to have to fight for insurance, but it's not that it affects this issue at all, but it raises the issue to me, and I think from a planning standpoint, we need to anticipate some of the things we're going to have to fight over with probably the state and the insurance commission for that matter sometime in the future. Well, I'll turn those in, but I have no objection to either of the items on the consent agenda.
Right. I mean, I think the findings here are really well done. I'm not going to done some of the other ones, so I'm ready. Any other discussion?
I'm just going to provide them to
Okay.
the staff, that's all.
But that's good. I remember I did this, it took a long time to try to work out the room sometimes.
Right.
Yeah. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
No opposed. All right. So now thank you. Now we go on to the public hearing. Item number 3, file number of zoning clearance 2033059 and oak tree permit 2023008, site plan review 2022012. That's a request for a zoning clearance and oak tree permit for backyard improvements within the protected zone of a heritage oak tree. The proposed improvements include demolition of existing pergola and installation of a new pergola, as well as installation of a fire pit and low seating wall, raised vegetable garden, new countertops and grill, and new landscaping located at 3901 Prado del Trigo within the residential single-family RS zoning district. And the applicants are the Spugos, David and Michelle, and I believe Mr. Spugos here, and the landscape architect is Jordan Crystal, SCBA Design Consultancy. We have a report, I believe.
Mr. Chair, if you wouldn't mind, I would love to introduce the planner, because this is the first time you're seeing her. Her name is Savina Johal. She came to us August 1st of last year. She's been with us a year now. I'm incredibly proud of her. She came out of UC Santa Barbara. Incredibly intelligent. She's grown so much this year, and super happy to have her here doing a presentation for you tonight. It also comes with a little bit of sadness. Tonight's her last day with the city. She has an amazing opportunity to go to Dublin, Ireland, to go to a grad school program for smart and sustainable cities. So it's with elation and a little sadness, but I present to you Savina Johal for the presentation tonight.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Sabina. Hopefully you'll come back and help us with what you've learned. Okay, turning it over to you.
Okay.
The only thing I'll ask for is that everyone on that panel, because you're below my view because of this, if you would speak right into the microphone so that it'll be picked up by everybody, and I don't have a hearing aid tonight, so it'd be helpful just to make sure that I get all your presentation. Thank you.
Yes, can you hear me? Is that all right? Okay.
You have to eat the mic, unfortunately, literally.
Yeah, especially because you have to have a mask, and now I know why you have the mask.
Yes.
You're going away and you don't want to have a problem.
Yes. Okay. So, good evening. So before I begin, I do want to mention that this project was noticed to all property owners within 500 feet of the subject site. It was posted on the city website and throughout the city at all required locations, and staff did not receive any public correspondence in relation to this project. So this is a project, this is a request for a zoning clearance and oak tree permit for encroachment into the protected zone of a heritage oak tree for backyard improvements, including a new pergola, fire pit and seating wall, countertop, and landscape and hardscape located at 3901 Prado del Trigo within the residential single-family zone. And due to the percentage encroachment into the protected zone of the oak tree being over 10%, this project requires review by the Planning Commission. Okay, so just an overview of the project location. Project site is outlined in green, located within the Oaks community in the RS zoning district, and surrounded to the north, east, south, and west by other single-family residents comprising the Oaks community. Okay, and zooming in a little bit to the project site, this is a lot size of 14,541 square feet, and the subject site is currently developed with an existing two-story single-family residence of approximately 4,229 square feet, and existing exterior improvements such as a rear patio cover and existing landscape and hardscape. And in this circle right here, the northwest corner of the rear yard is the subject oak tree. And so here's a photograph of the oak tree on the subject site, and we'll discuss a little bit more about that in a few slides. Okay, so the project description, this is a proposal for a zoning clearance and an oak tree permit for encroachment into protected zone for backyard improvements, which I stated before, new pergola, new fire pit and seating wall, countertop, raised vegetable planters, and new landscaping. New landscaping is to include installation of artificial turf and new trees and shrubbery. And the project also includes demolition of some existing site features, including an existing pergola, grill and countertop, landscape, and hardscape. So So Calabasas Municipal Code Section 17.32.010 requires that any project impacting more than 10% of the protected zone of an oak tree to be reviewed by Planning Commission. That's why this project is before you tonight. Okay, so the existing site plan and features to be demolished. Features to be demolished are outlined in red, so I'll briefly go through them. We have some existing trees that are to be removed, the existing hardscape, the existing pergola right over here, and then the existing grill and countertop underneath the pergola to be demolished. Okay, proposed landscape and site plan. So as I mentioned before in the scope of work, we have a new fire pit and seating wall located over here and associated hardscape, new vegetable planters located here. And then within the protected zone of the oak tree, we have some new artificial turf and ground cover being installed, some new trees, and just a small portion of the new pergola does fall within the protected zone of the oak tree. Okay, so this is the oak tree map, zoomed in a little bit. This was submitted by the applicant's arborist. So the oak tree is a heritage oak tree, so the protected zone encompasses 50 feet from the trunk. It's shown by this dotted line right over here. And the site features that will fall within the protected zone are outlined in red. So again, that's those raised vegetable planters, the fire pit and seating wall and hardscape, and some trees and shrubbery, and just that little portion of the pergola. Okay, so this oak tree, a little bit more about the oak tree on the site. This is a multi-trunk coast-live oak tree located in the northwest corner of the rear yard of the property. The tree was observed to be in fair health by both the applicant's arborist and the city arborist, with a well-balanced crown and good vigor. It did show some minor signs of deadwood and insect presence, but again, both arborists indicated the tree to be in fair health. Okay, so as measured by the city's arborist, the tree has trunk diameters of approximately 9, 10, 12, 13, and 14 inches. That's diameter at breast height, which is 4.5 feet above natural grade. And this would classify it as a heritage oak tree due to the diameter being greater than 24 inches. And so the protected zone encompasses 50 feet around the trunk. Okay, so the arborist reports the applicant's arborist estimated the rear yard improvements would encroach into the oak tree's protected zone by approximately 23%, exceeding that 10% threshold required for Planning Commission review. And in his report, the applicant's arborist indicated the encroachments are not expected to have any long-term negative impacts to the root or canopy areas of the tree, and provided recommendations to minimize impact to the tree, which I'll discuss on the next slide. Okay, so the city's consulting arborist, Noah Stom, agreed with the information and findings in the applicant's arborist report, including those recommendations made and the conclusion that no long-term negative impacts are expected. Okay, so a little bit about the recommendations made by the applicant's arborist and the city arborist. So these are just some of the recommendations. All work within the protected zone of the oak tree shall be performed within the presence of a qualified tree preservation specialist or project arborist. All work in the protected zone shall be performed with the use of hand tools only, so that would be any digging or trenching that may be required. And pervious pavers should be installed for any new construction elements placed within the protected zone to allow for necessary subsurface gas exchange. So again, these are just some of the recommendations made. The full list of recommendations by both the applicant's arborist and the city arborist have been incorporated in Exhibit E, the draft conditions of approval. Okay, so the applicable findings that need to be made for the oak tree permit, the Planning Commission would have to make one of the following findings in order to approve the project. And the finding most applicable to this project would be finding number 2. So the request to alter or encroach within the protected zone of an oak tree or scrub oak habitat is warranted to enable reasonable and conforming use of the property, which would otherwise be prevented by the presence of the oak tree or scrub oak habitat. In addition, such alterations and encroachments can be performed without significant long-term adverse impacts to the tree or scrub oak habitat, and reasonable use of the property shall be determined in accordance with the guidelines. Okay, so these are the rest of the findings. As I mentioned, finding number 2 on the previous slide was the one most applicable to this project. and the applicant's proposed justification for finding number 2 is attached as Exhibit B in the written staff report. Okay, so staff conclusions. The proposed project will not alter the existing use of the subject site, and the improvements are allowable in the residential single-family zoning district, and compliance with applicable development standards is documented within the staff report. The applicant's arborist and the city arborist are both in agreement that no long-term negative impacts to the heritage oak tree are expected. And finally, this project is exempt from secret review pursuant to Section 15061 and Section 15301. Okay, so recommended action that the commission directs staff to prepare either a resolution for approval or denial for file numbers ZCL 2023-059 and OTP 2023-008, inclusive of all required findings to support the resolution. And with that, thank you, and I'm available for any questions, and the applicant is also here to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions of the staff?
Couple quick.
Go ahead.
Have you heard from any of the neighbors who were provided notice?
We did not get any correspondence from the public.
Okay. And this is more curiosity than anything. The existing pergola is attached, and the new pergola is detached to make way for the grill and refrigerator area and the countertop on the opposite side. Is that accurate? Yeah. Okay. It is. Okay. I have nothing else.
Dennis, do you have any questions?
If you have some, why don't you go ahead and ask them, because I'd like to make a statement about.
Oh, I have
This whole
questions of the landscape architect when we get there. So
Okay.
this is of the staff.
Well,
All right, the public hearing was open. Oh, go ahead.
before we get to the public hearing, I want to set a little groundwork, because I've been around for all the things that made this evening an important requirement. And when in fact, the applicant lives in the Oaks development, which when we weren't a city, but were trying to become one, was actually a project of the Baldwin boys. And I can't even begin to talk about all that. The proposal was to remove 1,808 oak trees, some of them more than heritage, probably even sentinel oak trees, and move 7 million cubic yards worth of earth in order to create the pads for what they were hoping would be maybe 1,500 units instead of the 557 that are there. So, in a way, a lot of heritage is in place as we look at this, where we're looking to protect an oak tree. And what that tells you is that this city has been extremely responsible and careful and determined to make sure that the resources of the community are preserved for the community. And all the reasons that are here tonight, in order to deal with one tree that is questionably heritage, but certainly defined because that's what our law says, because the 9, 10, 11, and 12 and 13, multiple trunks that are at the 4.5 foot level do constitute by definition a heritage oak. But the real issue is, are they removing 1,808 oaks, in a property that's 2,500 acres that got pulled down to somewhere around 750 acres in order to create the development and all the history of this community. So what I want to do is commend the staff, because I think the person who started this issue was actually a consultant who looked at our laws and said, hey, that's the law of the city of Calabasas, and we did it, and appropriately so. We have to obey the law, and we have to ask our residents to do so as well. And this applicant did, and many people are doing that now, because we have our first ordinance that we passed in 1991 at Calabasas High School, when we banged the gavel for the first meeting of the city of Calabasas, was to pass an oak tree ordinance in order to keep that wholesale slaughter of oaks that was allowed by the establishment at the time, not us. And we did change that history, and we're proud of that. And I think that the applicant, in everything I read here, is proud also to live within that community and do their business according to the law with staff and with our attorney and everybody else on the dais. And I think that's a tremendous endorsement of what the community of Calabasas has done for itself. And I have many things I could say that we could do, but it's not necessary at this point. But I think as we continue to develop our next general plan, when we get to natural resources preservation, if that's an element, those are things that we should be almost wholesale in our review of how we do things and how we can, in fact, trust the people and the laws that we pass here over all these years. So it's a bit of a polemic. You have to put up with me because I was here when we didn't have a city. And or no tree ordinance. Didn't have anything. We didn't have a scenic corridor ordinance. No ordinance. We didn't have any standing, no money. Didn't have a pencil. So the point being ultimately that when a community decides to take care of itself and stand up for itself and its citizens and its residents, it's really great to see folks willing to participate in that. And it might take more time, even more money, and whatever. And it might be good for us to say, can we make that more appropriate for today? It's 2023, not 1991 or 1985 when we started incorporating in the first place. So I know that our staff is already working extremely hard to deal with all that, whether it's housing element or circulation element or public safety element, all the things that make our lives worthwhile here. So I would say I commend those who actually went through this process. It is a legitimate process and a good one, but let's see how we fare in the discussions this evening. I don't have any questions other than perhaps the applicant in the public hearing would give us some idea of why they also pursued this the way they have, and to what end they hope that this will turn out.
Thanks, Dennis. I've opened the public hearing. Do any of the cards, do any of these people want to speak? Jordan, Crystal, anyone? I don't know. I don't think it's hybrid. So does anybody want to speak? Because I've got some questions for Mr. Crystal. So, yeah, can you just come up to the podium there? Yeah, just because people, can you just announce your name and the city?
Jordan Crystal with CDA Design Consultants. I'm a landscape architect from Calgary.
Thank you.
And city of residence?
Ventura.
Well, thanks for coming out here. So I do have a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
And thank you for presenting this, by the way. I noticed that you're using Demondia for the front lawn, which I believe Commissioner Washburn has used at his property. But I think that's great. But why aren't you using that in the backyard instead of the plastic?
I think
grass?
grandchildren like to run around and kick balls, and so the turf is just, the synthetic turf is more friendly. The Diamondia would get torn up, and it's not prone to foot traffic as well. From my end. It's also really slow growing.
Oh, all right. You made calculations for the impervious surface on page L-1, but I couldn't tell that it's so small. Did you include the artificial grass in with the impervious surface?
I don't recall the calculations. If I did, I probably would have included that with the
Can staff, can you take a look to see? I just want to make sure, because that is impervious. I don't know if the applicant's aware that it's not very environmentally friendly artificial turf. It's plastic. It causes plastic pollution and global warming and runoff. So I was just wondering, but I don't know if you included it or not in the calculations. So.
David Spiegel, I'm the applicant. Jordan was absolutely right. My wife wanted an area, grass area, for the kids to run around, the grandkids to run around. I didn't want grass out there because of the watering. So we chose to go with the artificial turf. And it was my understanding that it's considered pervious because the water runs through. Today, it's not these things from 10 years ago. Now it goes through.
Oh, it has holes of some kind.
Right.
All right.
It doesn't run off.
Okay, that's good, because the ones that have runoff actually microplastics.
Yeah, we wouldn't have put that in.
Oh, okay, that's good, thank you. I've got another question, and that's on the fire pit. Is there another way to create a focal point, or can you get a fire pit that has like a table cover when it's not used or something? Because, some cities ban open fires because that just contributes to global warming, and you're just using fossil fuels because it looks good. I was just wondering if there's an alternative or something. Maybe the landscape architect or
We have not looked at alternatives. First of all, it's probably going to be used 3, maybe 4 times a year. As I said, we didn't look at alternatives, so I can't tell you if there's something that could go in, but the idea is for, as you said, a focal point, something that would use natural gas, so we're talking about 3-4 hours a year.
Right, no, I understand that, and you're not using it very much, but natural gas is natural gas, and it doesn't,
Yes.
it's just for looks, really. It's not the same as the barbecue, which, you're cooking on. Anyway, if there's an alternative, fine. If not, there may not be one right now, I don't know. So, that's okay, I'm just asking.
I don't know of any alternative. I guess there's lights and glass and ways to illuminate to make it look like a fire, but to get some warmth and ambiance.
Well, just know that someday it may be banned everywhere.
Right.
I mean, not Calabasas, I mean the state or the country or something.
It's only plant flowers.
Yeah, and we've done that in fountains. People have planted flowers. When you drive up Parkway Calabasas, you can see fountains, former fountains that are now holding flowers because of the water issue. So anyway, that's it. Those were my questions. I think does anybody else have any questions of the applicant or the arborist or landscape architect? Oh yes, go ahead.
Actually, the applicant.
Okay.
Just because when this comes back to us, assuming it is approved and we request staff to come back. In case the applicant is not here, have you read the conditions? I believe it's Exhibit E, the proposed conditions for the resolution.
Commissioner, I read everything.
And are you prepared to comply with those conditions?
Yes.
Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes, Richard Campbell, Thousand Oaks, and the arborist for the applicant. I wanted to speak to Commissioner Washburn's comment about the trees being removed, relocated, thrown away, and mitigated for. I was one of the original consultants to the city of Calabasas when we were on Monroe Road down at that office. And we talked about replacement trees, and this particular tree is from fire damage. And there would have been a huge tree, a heritage tree, that burned down and sprouted up these roots and these trunks. So this is actually replacing a huge tree that used to be there. So that's one of the reasons for the ordinance for all trees that add up to 24 inches or larger. So that's just a comment I wanted to make.
Don't go away, because give me an opportunity to make another comment.
Sure.
And Tom, I'm not going to embarrass you at all. I promise. When we dealt initially with the Baldwin brothers on their proposal, when we got the LA County Regional Planning Commission to work with us to preserve as many oak trees as possible and to reduce the amount of grading as much as possible, we were successful in both. It wasn't ideal, but it was a lot better than what they had proposed downtown. One of the things that we recommended and that they did approve and that we ultimately sustained here in the city of Calabasas is that we asked the builders, developers, to box up and prepare for transplantation many of the trees, and that's in one of these reports, literally, that this is likely one of the transplant trees that we boxed up. The developer had to pay for almost 10 years worth of monitoring of those trees, and they reported to the Resource Conservation District now of the Santa Monica Mountains. I was on the board there at the time that we learned that that's a good idea, even though transplanting oaks is not a great idea, because it's a crapshoot as to whether they're going to survive. This one did. It's there. You value the tree, and even though it's been damaged by basically time. It was probably planted by a squirrel in the first place. I've got 6 huge trees on my property that were planted by squirrels. Yeah. And if you let them get bigger than the 4 inches, or 9 inches, or whatever the thing is, you need a permit to take it off your property. So we're happy the squirrels did it in our yard, and I'm happy that you have a tree that probably was planted by a native species. So that you're willing to deal with that, and the staff has been accommodating for that, even though they've been tough, because that's what the law is. You're to be commended, I think, in dealing with the defense of that. And I hope in the future we can actually be a little more creative when it comes to defining what a heritage oak protection zone is. Or maybe you can anticipate that when you're told in a time and manner so that you can adjust your landscape design in order to accommodate what you want. So I don't see any problem other than the fact that you've gone way above and beyond, in my opinion. And thank you for that. And I know that that's a lesson to the community, and to congratulate the people who have come in brand new, or who've been here on a part-time basis, or that have been here for 18 or 20 years. It's a good thing. The city works. It's hard nose, but it works, and it's a great place to live. So thank you.
Okay. That's one of the reasons we weren't concerned about encroaching into that protected zone, because this was a transplanted tree, and the roots are still developing from that box that they put in the ground.
Right.
So we're not expecting to see any large roots down near that wall, protection wall, or the fire pit. So if we do, we'll need to bridge over them, or if it's small enough, we'll just sever the root.
That's thoughtful and responsive. Thank you again.
Excuse me, Mr. Carroll, did they drop the box in the ground?
Oh, no.
Or they took the tree out of the box?
Well, they put the box in, they take the bottom off, put the box in the ground, and leave it for a couple of months while it gets used to getting its roots into the ground.
Okay.
Of course, it was on the side of the slope, so they had to build a wall around it to hold the soil. And then after a while, they take the sidewalks out.
Got it. Okay.
And some of the trees in the oaks are quite sizable, and they've also survived all this transplantation. It's not mistreatment, but it is experimental in almost every case. The survival rate from that research that we did with the Conservation District was maybe 45%, but it's better than losing them all.
Right. And we did lose, and several hundred, I think, were lost.
The oaks and the city of Calabasas is better because of it. So thanks for keeping the faith.
All right, unless there's anything else, I think I'll close the public hearing, and then we can go to, did you have other,
No,
then we can go to comments.
I'm ready to
And,
make a
and,
motion.
and with the motion, can you add the finding, like number 2, or you remember we had to choose one of the findings? No?
What was that?
It was,
can't.
it was about one of the, it was
Which
in regards to the
specific
oak, it was in
finding?
regards to the oak tree, the reason for allowing encroachment of the oak tree, and I think it was,
I think what you're referring to is on slide 13 of the presentation, the applicable findings there, or slide 12, excuse me.
finding number 2 on page 12.
Right, 12 and 13. So,
Right, there were a number of findings, and I think staff recommended number 2, which I agree.
Yeah, only one is
I'll
required.
include that. So I move that the Commission direct staff to prepare a resolution for approval of file number ZCL-2023-059 and OTP 2023-008 and include within that resolution the fact that it is finding number 2 of applicable findings under section 17.32.010 of the CMC that is the basis for our approval.
That's your motion, I'll second it.
I would note, sorry, before we vote on the motion, that the findings submitted by the applicant, and maybe staff can help clear this up, are in the, or they are in the same section, sorry. It is also 1732.010, but very slightly different findings. This is an exhibit D of the packet. Actually, never mind, I take it back. Sorry, it's 2 out of 4, right?
As long as the reference is to the code section, it is item number 2 in the code section, so that should do it.
Well, we're only asking for preparation of resolution for consent agenda next time anyway, so we're good.
Yeah, but I agree. I think that's the finding that staff thought was appropriate. I think that is in this instance. Any discussion?
Nope.
Because I think this is a good project, and I appreciate the effort that you put in. And I know it's unusual to come to a commission meeting, but this is a really well done job, I think. Yes, let's vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Unanimous. Thank you.
Thanks for putting up with all the protective measures we had to go through.
Thank you. So now we'll move on to the director's report.
Members of the commission, Mr. Chairman, Michael's on a well-deserved vacation, so I get to the privilege to update you on anything. There won't be a lot. First, I did want to remind you that you just met Savina, and you're going to have to, unfortunately, for you and us, but fortunately for her, she's got a good reason for exiting, say goodbye to Savina, so I encourage you to maybe make your hellos and goodbyes at the end of the meeting. Secondly, your August 17th meeting is canceled. We had just a discussion item that was pending for that. Obviously, the resolution for this as a consent item would have been on that, but it didn't seem to be enough to warrant putting everybody together for a meeting. So September 7th would be the next meeting. We do have 3 items that we're tracking for that date already, and then the resolution that you now requested would be on that agenda as well. That's all I have to report.
Do you know when we'll see the memo from city attorney regarding the maximum number of units allowed in each of the sites in the affordable housing overlay zone? He said we would prepare a memo for the council.
That sounds like a question for the city attorney.
City attorney, oh, sorry.
I'll confer with Matthew Summers, the city attorney, and we'll take it from there and hopefully get you an update soon.
Okay, I just think we need to have, decision makers need to have the right numbers, or the maximum number. Okay, thank you.
Could I ask Tom to repeat the date that you talked about at the next meeting?
September 7th.
September 7th is what I have on my
August
calendar.
17th is not going to be another meeting?
Correct. We're going to cancel that. We just did.
That's what I would
We
understand.
had a discussion item that was tentatively scheduled for that, but other items that have been tracking and might have come up for them are actually tracking now for the 7th of September. So it made more sense to not convene the group for just one discussion item.
Well, thank you. Are there any reports from planning commissioners?
I just want to welcome Savina to first planning commission meeting and wish you well on your very exciting sounding new endeavor.
Thank you very much.
Best of luck with everything.
Thank you.
Bon voyage.
Yes, bon voyage. Thank you for your work here, and good luck there. Well, if that's it, if there's nothing else, then motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We are adjourned to the next meeting on September 7th. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.